Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about my first impressions of the unknown from the actual live servers compared to the PTB, and they were mostly positive. I'd say it started off not as positive as I would have liked, but I kind of started realizing it was because of the new map. People kept burning Garden of Joy offerings over and over because it's on the same realm. And basically, I just had a greatest hits of the Garden of Joy and the new map over and over again. And in my opinion, the new map is actually not that great for this killer because there's like 27 unsafe pallets, which are really good for getting easy M1s, but kind of awkward for getting hits with your power because there's tall rock loops that you can't really like shoot around. The trees had sort of inconsistent collision. Some branches I would just shoot directly through, some would bounce off of, some would not bounce at all. So I found like the map itself was not super good for the killer, and that really tainted my view of how good the killer was. But once I started using map offerings for like McMillan, Autohaven, just anywhere else, basically, I started having way more success and way more fun with the killer. So if you're having a bad time, it could be because the map weighting for the new releases is typically weighted towards a new map. And at least in my opinion, I feel like the new map is not very good for this killer. But overall, I do think this killer is not going to see that much play overall. I think it's going to be one of the least played killers in the game. And the reason is kind of complicated. So it's a killer that is decently difficult to play. Probably not like, Billy's Singularity tier in terms of mechanical skill, but it's fairly difficult hitting the proper bounces to get hits. The issue, in my opinion, is that there is basically no margin for error at all. So you have pretty much a 2-second window to shoot. So you have a cooldown of, I believe, 7 seconds, and they stay weak for 10 seconds. As long as they're looking at you, that gives you 1 second to pull out the actual appendage and then 2 seconds to shoot. So you have a very tiny window to hit someone twice in order to down them, or they're going to lose their weakness and then you have to restart it again. So that can be a little frustrating, and especially if you're a less experienced player, having that little margin for error is kind of rough. Now, the saving grace to that is, though, when newer players are hopefully going also against newer players, they're not also going to be revealed as much. The reveal mechanic is how you remove weakness, which is the negative effect that makes you able to be damaged by his power. And in order for that to go away, the survivor has to look at that player. So it actually might end up balancing itself out, where normally it would be too frustrating for new players, but also new survivors are not going to reveal the killer as quickly because they're not looking behind them as much in chase. So that does bring up the issue that the better the player is, the better they are at countering the killer itself. And I know that sounds like a very stupid statement because no shit, but there are certain killers and perks that are exponentially stronger against or exponentially weaker against new players. Like Legion, for example, good players know when to heal and when to not heal. And so as you go against better and better players, Legion becomes weaker and weaker. Even if the killer's skill remains the same, the better opponents they go against, the killer becomes weaker and weaker. And I feel like that's sort of the case with this killer because, yeah, you're going to get people that are looking behind them in a chase and they're going to reveal you, giving you a very tiny window to actually hit the power. And that can be extremely hard to actually do. So that is, I think, my main concern about his strength. And I think that is the main thing that stops him from being like an A-tier killer or anything like that. I think he's going to end up being above average, like your solid B plus kind of that realm. Again, it's still super early. We haven't seen shit people can do yet. But based on the fact that the power is limited by how much a survivor looks at you in a chase, means the better players you go against, the weaker and weaker he's going to feel. And the thing is, players can take advantage of that fact. They can know that they're going to reveal you in X amount of time. So they can know that you only have this window to actually damage a player. And if that's the case, they can just simply get out of line of sight for that extra second or two and then remove their weakness. They might even intentionally take an M1 just so their weakness has gone away. Then you have to hit them with the power, then hit them with the power again. And we have sort of a nemesis situation where you have to just keep hitting people over and over. The change they made from the PTB, where if you hit somebody that's weak and it extends their weakness, is a very welcome and very good change. And I would almost like the reveal window to just not be as lenient, because if you look at the killer for like the next 1 or 2 seconds, you continue to reveal them. So even if you go behind a wall, you keep revealing them. And that sometimes feels pretty bad. But those are all just, minor nitpicks for the most part. As soon as I start, getting more hang of the killer and playing on maps that were not nearly as bad, I do think he was way more enjoyable. The killer is pretty map dependent, though. There are a lot of maps where there's just simply not anything to bounce off of, and so you don't really have that many options unless you're in like a jungle gym. As I was getting towards the end of stream, I was really starting to broaden my horizons a bit and realize that, like, you know, at a TL wall, if you aim directly at the side of the window, you can bounce it and hit off the other side. So there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this killer, and I think that's awesome. But it does sort of feel like the best way to play him is a less interesting playstyle of basically just zoning. He's a very, very good zoning killer, and that doesn't always feel super rewarding to play, but it also does feel rewarding getting like long range mortar hits and stuff like that. And you can actually play him as sort of a hit and run killer too, because they have to look at you to reveal you. So if you hit someone that's far away, it's not like that was a wasted effort, because now they're going to have weakness on them. And so later when you chase them, you can have a much easier hit on them. So there's a lot of play styles. You can even do some stealth play styles, hit and run. You can just go pure chase. He definitely has a ton of different play styles, and I think that is very interesting. And this is not the kind of killer we're going to be able to gauge the true strength of for quite some time. The skill cap is significantly higher than most killers in the game, and it's just not something I'm able to give a really good prediction on due to how difficult he can be to play in certain tiles. Frustrations are, in a lot of loops, you simply cannot do anything. There's just nothing you can do. If there's like a rock loop and there's nothing to bounce off of, as long as that pallet is not dropped, you don't really have anything to bounce anything off of. So that can be frustrating. Getting revealed through walls and stuff like that because it lingers can be frustrating. Again, these are just all pretty minor complaints. Overall, I'd say the chapter is a pretty big success. Player base is quite high. Now, I'm not sure if that's because of Sable and people just want to play Sable, and that's one of the main reasons, but we had a massive spike in the player base up to like 70,000 players, which is we haven't seen in over a year at this point. So that's really, really nice to see, and I'm always happy to have higher player numbers in the game. But overall, I think the killer is a success, and I look forward to learning more of him. Frustrations are definitely there, and that's why I think new players are not going to gravitate towards this, and new players honestly make up a larger portion of the player base than probably the people that are watching videos like these and watching streams. So I don't think after a certain point we're going to see very many people playing this killer, but I do think the ones that get good at them are going to be absolutely terrifying. So that's overall my thoughts on the Unknown. Thanks for watching.